Continue. There.
All right, welcome everybody to Sarah's The Power of Our Story, First Responders Edition. Tonight we have Chad Kennedy with us, who is a sheriff with the Alberta Highway Patrol and the founder of C2C for PTSD. He'll be walking through Canada in 2022 to raise awareness for PTSD amongst emergency services and military communities, promoting the well-being and looking to raise funds for those that need it. Chad, thanks for being with us and joining our group, and take it away, my friend.
Great, thanks for having me all. Yeah, I'm with the Alberta Sheriff's Highway Patrol here in Alberta. I guess for layman's terms, we're kind of like the state troopers of our province, with a little less authority, and we work side by side with the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. 2018, I was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress. Ended up some passport.
Chad, we're losing you, buddy. You're all good.
What first responders deal with and go through. So like many of us, I felt the therapy wasn't working, so I gave up on it and relied on medication that my family doctor had prescribed me to deal with what I was going through, the fight or flight stuff. And that was all well and dandy. And last July 18th of 2020, I attended a bus rollover in Jasper National Park. Sorry, there was multiple casualties, few fatalities, and there was myself and 5 other law enforcement members that were first on scene, and we didn't have the tools to go with a catastrophic event, mass casualty, no paramedics, no fire, just sort of left to deal with. Okay, so 2018, well, I'll start from the beginning again. A member of the Alberta Sheriff's Highway Patrol, kind of like the state troopers, with a little less authority. We work side by side with the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. And over the course of my 14 years, I've obviously attended a lot of gruesome incidents. In 2018, I was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress. When I reached out for help, post-traumatic stress that I received when I was with who can understand first responders. Okay, you know what? Try again. Got it.
So you can share anytime, Chad.
Okay, I didn't know. I thought I lost y'all again. Okay. Can you still hear me? This is just a check.
All good.
Are we good? Okay. My name's Chad Kennedy. I'm a member of the Alberta Sheriff's Highway Patrol. For you all in the States, it's kind of like we play the state troopers up here. Work side by side with the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. Yeah, I've been through a lot of horrible situations over the course of my career. 2018, I decided to reach out for help. Things just weren't right. A lot of fight or flight. Went to see my doctor, diagnosed with good old post-traumatic stress. And at that point was given the help of a psychologist who did not get what first responders go through. So like so many of us get discouraged, I left therapy, relied on medication to curb my fight or flight and my anger issues. And last summer, July 18th of 2020, I attended a a bus crash, multi casualties, a few fatalities. Myself and 5 other law enforcement members were first on scene and didn't have the tools to do the job, to take care of the people we needed to help out. So no paramedics, no firefighters. And since that day, things started going downhill for me, actually really quick. Within a month, I was reaching out for help again. And if any of you have followed my story, I was helped out by Terrence Kosakar at Camp My Way in British Columbia, and realized that if a stranger could reach out and help just me, another stranger, how could I help other people? And just, off the cuff, I figured, man, people don't understand us with post-traumatic stress. They don't speak our language. So how can I help educate people? And I went to the extreme and decided I would do a walk across Canada to raise awareness for our emergency service and military personnel, and try and raise a few bucks to help those who need help the most.
Did you stop?
I stopped. I just wanted a break in there. I wanted to, I was hoping you guys were still there.
So you want a question answered? Just checking. We've had some technology problems, so that's why I was asking that. So anyway, anybody have any questions?
How far did you walk?
Chad hasn't started walking yet.
Oh, he hasn't?
Chad, can you hear us?
Now I can. I don't know what's going on.
I just want to
Truly
say
don't.
that I totally understand where you're coming with the psychologist, because the first one I had, I wouldn't give you 2 cents for. And thankfully, I went and searched and found my own, and she was a miracle worker. So I tell anybody I talk to, don't ever work with someone you don't feel comfortable with or trust.
That's right. Just walk away. And, I think a lot of people I've talked to are, they gave up after the first try, and they're now discouraged and too afraid to continue on, asking for help.
This group has good connections, so we're here for you.
Awesome. Thank you. I got to throw in there that, the third time I reached out for help, February of just this recent February, things were digressing for me, and I asked for help again. And right now, through the Workers' Compensation Board, I've actually got some pretty phenomenal support and help behind me. Great psychologist, great occupational therapist, and a great psychiatrist. So things are on the up and up. I'm getting the tools I finally need to learn how to cope with this post-traumatic stress stuff. And it's just another part of my journey.
For sure. Are you getting the support you need from work?
I am. You realize real quick who your brothers and sisters are and who stand behind you, and then you also learn at the same time who doesn't have your back. The management team that I have, knock on wood, are really awesome. And actually, when I announced that I was going to walk Canada, actually stood behind me, and we're going to go up to the chief and try and make things work. Now I'm going through the process. So I don't know genuinely if I will return to work, and I want that my choice. I don't want it a doctor's choice or the compensation board. So either way, I'm walking the country with the support of the sheriff's branch or a psychologist and occupational therapist.
Fantastic.
I really appreciate you sharing, Chad. And that must have been incredibly difficult. I'm not in law enforcement. I'm not a veteran. Everything that I learned from everybody here. So as I kind of put these dots together that I hear that comes up, like Chris says in his book, was there a time that you were okay till you were not okay? Is that the bus accident? Is that when something kind of made it, kind of the last straw? Or is there a defining moment when you felt like things were not okay?
Yeah, when I go back and evaluate, and I think, immediately after the bus crash, shortly thereafter, it was pre-planned vacation for 2 weeks. So really, I wasn't able to talk about what I had seen, what I had gone through. I felt very alone. And then, I just tried to get back into that normal, whatever normal may be, routine. And then with the help of Terrence out at Camp My Way, I was able to disconnect from all the bad shit, reconnect with myself and nature, and just learn how to move energy without being violent or sad. And things were looking on the up and up. And then it was just a gradual downward spiral, I guess. I started avoiding collision scenes and working busy highways and freeways. And then I just, the motivation to even get into my patrol car was just gone. And, so the bus crash, yes, was the straw that broke the camel's back. And I guess like everybody else, you just pretend to be okay. And it's that nasty demon just sort of takes hold of you and reminds you that you're not okay.
Hey, Chad, when did you say that was again?
That was July 18th of last summer.
Okay. Well, I will share a little bit of something with you. So 2016, I got into a shooting pretty bad. And then about a year later, a friend of mine got into a shooting, and it was one of the worst triggers that I had. And I had been through several prior triggers that were mostly good. There was a few that were a little questionable, but this one was pretty bad. And what I took away from that was recognizing that there was nothing else that was going to duplicate what was going to set that particular trigger off. So just my opinion only, if you decide to go back to work, which I hope you do, because in my case, I had to prove to myself that I still had what it took to make it back to full duty. And when I did, it was the greatest thing in the world. But when that trigger happened for me, which I think is, in your case, I mean, it's going to probably be unavoidable. So I would just say, you know what, don't do what I did, because I sat at home for about 7 weeks creating my own triggers, thinking, oh, it's going to be this,
right,
or it's going to be this, or it's going to be this. And when it happened, it was something completely out of the blue that I never even thought about, But in your case, if you're working the freeways on a regular basis, it's a pretty good chance you're going to run into the same issue again.
Yeah.
Now, how you handle that is going to be, that's a whole nother topic in itself. So we can all kind of jump in on that one. So
Thanks for that, brother. It's
absolutely.
every day even going through I'm going through exposure therapy and the unknown, and the strangest things. I'll just be driving down the road in my personal truck, and it just takes one idiot to drive the wrong way, and I'm triggered, and I'm clenching the steering wheel, and hoping that idiot doesn't crash up the highway, because instinctively I'm going to deal with it. but like I said, I've been to, dispatched to one crash just before Christmas that I avoided. And the weirdest thing that I'm that guy that will run towards danger and run towards helping somebody, and then wham, just disconnected from it all.
Well, I mean, that's to be expected, and you will, because believe me when I tell you, I mean, I was labeled a resident shit magnet in 3 precincts where I worked, and I got cornered one day when I told a friend of mine I'm going to go find a place to hide, and he was like, "Nope, that's bullshit, wrong." And then that was where it kind of started my path to healing for myself. So that's absolutely perfectly normal for you to want to avoid that stuff, because why? I mean, you were traumatized by what you saw, and if you weren't traumatized,
Exactly.
you're probably really screwed up. So it's the way.
Yeah. Awesome.
So that's just, again, that's my opinion. That's how I look at things. I wrote a story in my book. It's called Back to the Scene. I will make sure you get a copy of that before we end this conversation. But I talk about that, where I went back to my gunfight scene a few days later, and I've been back several times since. And every time I go back, it's something brand spanking new.
Yeah.
And how I processed through all those kinds of things, and what I did and what I saw, and the emotional side. And I was there with Natalie. By the way, it's my girlfriend, Natalie.
Hi, Natalie.
Hi.
We were down there together one time, and I mean, it was a really windy day, and there were rose petals that landed right where my buddy was shot and killed, and they stayed right there. And all the wind was blowing around us, but they stayed right there. And I just took that thing as that's God speaking to us, or Dave, my buddy, speaking to us. And those are things that they may happen, they may not happen. But obviously, I mean, like I was talking about before, don't try to make them happen. If they do, great. If they don't, they will eventually. You know what I mean? So.
Right on. Thanks, man.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, as usual, I shut everybody down. Sorry, I like to. Where's Gregorio, man? He's got baby brother stuff to do. So.
I think he's traveling back.
Oh, I want to add something that I heard you say. I heard you say about how to find someone that you can talk to. And I think that is like a huge thing. Me as a nurse, I always told my patients, if you're not comfortable with that doctor and you can't share, then you go find another one. You find one that you're comfortable with. You find one you can talk to. And even with my own situation going on right now, I was frustrated with it all, and the doctors and, the specialists and everything that I've been sent to for medical reasons, that I was in tears over it. And the physician caught me. I tried to talk it away. I'm just stressed out. It's just a rough day. And she saw the tears in my face. And, being that I work with suicide prevention, it was such a wonderful thing to see. Not at the time, I didn't like it, but she stopped me and she said, it was a specialist, and she said, we need to address your anxiety, because we're not going to get anywhere unless I know what's going on. And as someone that works with suicide prevention, like, that is what we want. We want the medical doctors to address the mental health aspect of it too. And when I was frustrated with it and I broke down crying by the time I got home, I had to flip myself into the nurse mode. What would I be telling my patients? I would be telling my patients, if you don't like the doctor, go find someone else, go find another one. This is what you do. And I could see it from the nurse point, what I would be telling everyone else. And I had to flip it to make sure that I did that to myself, as far as being my own advocate. And that's something that I tell people all the time. You have to advocate for yourself, because if you don't, who will? And the folks in this group will tell you, that's why when I'm an advocate and I'm out there, I have the loudest mouth and I have no problem. But when it comes to doing it for yourself, it's something else to learn. And that you acknowledge that is huge, to be your own advocate.
Brenda, you bring up some interesting things. I got to say, when round 3, when I was reaching out for help, I acknowledged something was wrong, but it was actually my sergeant that kicked my ass out of the office and told me to go talk to my doctor and not come back until I had. So stemming from when I announced I was going to walk Canada back last August to February, here I am, Mr. Advocate. I'm voted onto the Advocacy Island in Canada, and here I am, not seeking the help or advocating for myself. So, it's interesting. And the second thing is, it's here in Alberta, I'm forever slamming the mental health programs because they're just non-existent. With health care cuts, it seems that the first thing we cut is our mental health programs. And it's not just in Alberta, it happens to be all across Canada. And to see that that's going on in the United States, it's frustrating. It's this big epidemic. And why? My question is, why do we give up on the mental health programs?
Well, I don't know. I'm working on that national project and trying to get everyone to be able to talk about it. So as the patient, when I was there and my physician did it, it made me happy, but it also made me mad because at that moment I wanted to address the medical, never mind the mental, just fix the medical, and so it will also take you to a point where you have to face what you have going on, whether you want to or not. And at that moment, I did not want to, but I had no option because my physician called me on it. And so it was addressed, but the professional me was happy because that means the work that we're doing, the physicians are now asking. So it's out there, but that's where advocacy comes in, that we all need to advocate for it. And the hardest thing to do is to be your own advocate.
Yes. And I've lived it. So now I'm wiser, but, promoting, sorry.
Where are you in Alberta? I know you're down around Calgary. Do you live in Calgary or are you?
I do. I live in Southeast Calgary.
Okay. I'll be staying in Red Deer at the end of August. So maybe we can meet up for coffee somewhere.
Booyah. Love it.
Chad, did you say you already started walking, or you are planning on it?
No, the walk starts April 2nd of 2022. However, September 13th of this year, I will be doing the Alberta leg of the walk, just to prepare for what's going to be hitting us for the whole country. So it's going to be the trial and error, and start ramping things up and getting the media on board with what we're doing.
I think one of the best things that you can do for yourself is find purpose behind your pain, to move past it, to give it purpose. And I think that is going to be probably one of the best things that you can do for yourself and for others, is to put purpose to it. I got
a question for you.
Okay.
So, now putting you on the couch, and I'm no shrink by any stretch of imagination, believe me. So I had to ask myself this very question, and since you're being so honest and vulnerable with us right now, I just love it, by the way. That's awesome. Why do you think that you didn't advocate for yourself? I mean, I know my answer. I'm sure that everybody's got a different answer, but for you, I'm really interested.
Yeah, it's I think after the bus crash. So I'll just go back a bit. After the bus crash, I was in the position where I didn't feel I could speak to anybody. I guess nobody understands the language of post-traumatic stress, and for us to put that stuff into words is complicated. People don't understand when we get that bout of rage or anger or sadness. And at the beginning, it's like, well, this is easy. I can advocate for others and say, it's so important to tell your story, and reach out for help, and keep reaching out till you get the help you need. But when it started hitting that breaking point for me, knowing that I probably needed help, I was still too afraid to reach out for help. Here I am being the big strong guy, never mind the uniform, and who I was outside of work. It's now I'm too afraid to ask for help myself. So I needed that kick in the ass to get in the right direction, and just something to open my eyes and say, dude, you're here you are, Mr. Mental Health at the workplace, and you're talking this talk, but man, you're not walking the walk. So I guess if that answers your question, I was too afraid, I think, to reach out for help again. I felt beat up, and I just didn't really know where to turn.
Yeah. That sounds very similar to me. I was straight up in denial. I'm like, no, look, I mean, I got my big ass on my chest, you know, I'm out there to save the world. I don't need to be saved. That's bullshit. I'm a savior myself. Come on. You know, so
Yeah.
when I finally hit rock bottom, in my case, I started seeking out help on my own. The bad part for me was that after about a year, my department kind of turned their back on me. They're like, look, it's been a year. You should be good to go. We've got other shit to worry about. So let's move on. And I still wasn't off my ledge. And it took me quite a while, you know. And then I had another few extra traumas that happened after my big thing. And then I was like, oh, dude, you know, I just keep getting knocked back and back and back. And then finally I clawed back and said, all right, you know what? I need to get better because I don't want to be like this for the rest of my life. You know what I mean?
Right. Right.
That's something to fight for. Just like Nat says, having a purpose. You know, that was huge, really huge. So,
well, and you know, to go back on that, you know, my story, you know, Sarah has been following me for quite a while. Two things I asked myself and daily: what is my purpose and what defines me? And really, I hope that this walk across the country answers both of those. You know, gives me my definition and my purpose. I'm still seeking. You know, if that hit me in the head today or tonight, I'd be happy. But that's, you know, part of my healing is this walk. Yeah, and I hope, I really hope I get a definition and a purpose out of it.
Hey, Chad, can I jump in there for a second?
Yes.
First off, thanks, man, for sharing. I was a cop here in New Zealand, originally from California, but cop here in New Zealand for 7 years. Same thing, went through PTSD, all the trauma from obviously what we see in that, and ultimately massive burnout. And then afterwards, I went on a massive soul searching trip, came back to the States and did a few months around, came back, felt good, but then just started diving into personal development. Did my neuro-linguistic programming masters, have done Tony Robbins events, done all these different things. And what I learned, obviously, as first responders, were slightly different to members of public because we see so much stuff like you've described, you know, that the mind is not designed to deal with so much of it.
Right.
Two things that I learned, the two biggest things that I think from listening to yours and even some of these, you know, some of these other guys a few times that I've been on, is one, there is obviously the purpose. And I'll give you some tools real quick to find that, help you find that purpose, because that's kind of what I do with people. But first off, also is looking back and identifying the positives out of all these traumatic things. What are the what's the good shit that you've learned from it? Because that's what I've done, you know. It's also going back, because I can guarantee the reason that it was crashes and the fatalities that got under your skin so much is childhood trauma. It all stems from childhood trauma, and these events that we have as adults just add on to it and just insinuate it. So it's going back to those and kind of recognizing them and going, what are the good things from that? And then, you know, keeping them, you know, looking at them through all those different events coming forward, just gets that positive mindset of the stuff. So you constantly go, hey, these are happening for me, not to me. Because that was the same thing. I had a female partner of mine get assaulted. I thought that I felt in my soul that I should have protected her, and it, you know, I should have done all of these different things. And in turn, looking back on it, I go, hey, it made me a better cop afterwards. I didn't fuck around afterwards when I went to go arrest people anymore. I was a lot more assertive, and got shit done, but then caring as well. But then, yeah. And so just, those are some tools that I've figured out, especially for myself and also helping other people work through things. But to find your purpose, the quickest and the easiest way, it takes about, when I do it with people, it takes about half hour. But you start with, why is it important for me to be successful? You start with that and you answer it. And whatever that answer is, you then ask yourself why that's important. And you keep going.
Yeah.
A lot of people get about 4 levels into it, and it'll feel really good. They'll start to say the same thing over and over again, just in different words. And at that stage, you've got to really let loose and dive into the emotions, not the logical brain.
Right.
Back to your past and see where that comes from. What this does is it actually finds your why or your purpose of life. And it's actually what has driven you through your entire life. Mine is I want to create less pain in myself and others. And so that's what I live on. And if I look at, as a kid, I always wanted to stop bullies. I always didn't want cliques happening in the schools that I was in. Then I joined the police because I saw a train crash happen in LA, and the what was on my mind of being in the police. And so I was like, they're creating the least amount of pain. Now, I didn't know this at the time. I've figured it out since, but looking back over it to test my purpose, my why. And so then, and now that's all I focus on. You know, I'm going into insurance now, it's, you know, selling insurance and helping people with insurance. From being a cop to insurance, it sounds kind of, you know, if you think about it, it's kind of like, well, kind of, yeah, I see it, but I don't at the same time. It's because I'm creating less pain in people's lives in the time when they need that relief and that financial relief. And
Right.
so, yeah, it's just something, Jed, you know, listening to you and also listening to these guys, I thought I'd share that, especially since it's one of the last times I might be able to get on to one of these calls. But it can really shifting that mindset and being able to talk about that to other people and bounce these things out. That's why this group's so awesome. But yeah, keep doing the good fight. It's awesome to hear that you're doing the walk, but that might help you find that purpose, which then you can apply to that walk. You can apply to everything, and it can shift that mind from, you know, a bit of, and you've gotten a lot, it sounds like you've gotten through a lot of it, but if it's still recent as, you know, January, February, figuring out what, you know, what are those good things that have come from all this stuff that has happened, you know? Like, I know I've interviewed Chris on my podcast, and, you know, his stuff is, he's been able to write a book, he's been able to help all these people, he's met Natalie, he's, you know, all these different things. And so that's what he stays focused on now. And now he's looking at going back to the place, you know, because he's like, hey, I'm in this place where I can't do all this.
Right.
Because I'm a lunatic, that's the problem.
Well, there's that.
We love you anyway, Chris.
Thanks. Somebody has to. I mean, Natalie stuck with me for a while. I don't know. You might start realizing, you know, maybe it's a bit of you. So,
I just want to
You guys are
piggyback
awesome.
on
Go ahead.
and I love the idea that, well, not the idea, but I love the fact that you were able to identify your specific needs, which is finding your purpose and identification. The purpose, as Chris just talked about, is probably the easier part, at least the way I perceive it, because you know what's in your heart, and you know what you feel fulfilled. And if you don't, you will find that sooner rather than later. I think the hardest part, and we've talked about this as a group a bunch of times, is the identification piece, especially as cops. Like that uniform definitely identifies you, and it's part of who you are. And I think it's there's the other Chris. And I think it's really tough to shed that outer layer that people see, because they don't, when you're wearing that uniform, people don't see what's underneath. And you know who you are on the inside, but through that uniform, you're a different persona, you're a different character, you're a different actor, and people perceive who you are by that exterior shell. And it may not be truly how you identify on the inside. So I think once you figure out who you are on the inside through your purpose, that identification itself will naturally come through with or without the uniform. So when it does come time to shed that uniform, whether it's sooner rather than later, or you go through to the end, it doesn't matter. That transition is going to be the same. And that ability to find out who you are, that you want the world to see, will become much clearer without the uniform on. But crossing that bridge to the other side is certainly the most difficult part. Now, I'm a year and a half out. I believe I know who I am, but people still identify me by my former career. And sometimes it makes me smile. Sometimes it makes my heart hurt. Not because I don't want to be that person anymore, but because I miss it. And, you know, it needs to be part of your story, but it can't be who you are only. important to recognize that, and you need to hang it up in the closet when the time is right. And just know that that was a part, it was one chapter. And the next chapter doesn't have to include that uniform, and nor should it. But you should also, once in a while, go back and reread a few pages from that old chapter. It makes you feel good.
Oh yeah. Heck yeah. It's I'm at the point right now, did this happen halfway through my career or at the end of the career? And I want that to be my decision. I know a lot of people get frustrated with the medical system and being told that they can't return to work. There's 90% of my job that I love. I love dealing with the public. I love my job. There's that 10% that 10% that says, man, if I'm putting all this effort in and I want that time back and all over. So, I'm still trying to figure it out, and like I say, it's one step at a time. I'm learning, or have learned, how to move my energy, and that's getting out for my walks every day and focusing on the positives in life and not going back to the negatives, pulling the positives out of incidents like the great bus crash. It's what did I learn from that? What did I experience there that was positive? And what are all the positives that stemmed from it? And I tell you, if that bus crash did not happen, we wouldn't be here having this conversation today. There would be no walk across Canada, not with my legs anyways, and there wouldn't be that voice that's going coast to coast, and hooking up with awesome people such as yourselves. I must say, the support I've gained from everybody in the United States is overwhelming, and the other 8 countries where people are following what I'm doing is great. So it's, what the positives are flowing. They're all like good vibes. The only things that come back to haunt me is when I'm revisiting locations doing my exposure therapy, and through that, these bad things will just become memories.
Can I jump in for a sec?
Yes.
I'm not going to call you to the carpet or anything, but I think that I'm going to disagree with you on one thing that you just said.
Okay.
So really, really short version, my career, by the time I hit my 18th year, I was pretty much up to here. My buddy was killed, knocked me on my ass. You're in the exact same position that I was. Yours was a bus crash. Mine was a gunfight. Okay. But it wouldn't have been, hadn't it been Dave, it would have been something else. In your case, I think it's going to be the exact same thing. It may not have been that particular incident, but if you go however long you got on, you can't go all that time and not expect to be screwed up at some point in your career. And it wasn't necessarily going to be, it could be a dog you see get hit by a car. It could be, it could be anything. So I think that you were on that path, no matter what it was going to be, that you were going to end up exactly where you are, which is good because now you recognize that and then you're going to move forward. So I'm not diminishing whatsoever with the bus crash, because I think that was the ending of the culmination, that everything else you dealt with was the one, just like me right here, knocked you on your ass. Okay. So that's just, again, that's my humble opinion. So,
hey, you know what? I appreciate that. And I never thought of it like that. And you know what? Everything happens for a reason. You're right. It could have been, it could have just been the next call that was that straw in the camel's back. So thank you for that. I appreciate that.
Can I just throw in really quickly? I want to say, as a nurse that reached out for help and was told not to share it with my colleagues because they wouldn't want to work with me, that it takes a lot of strength to come out and say, I'm broken, I need help. And so I just want to say that, in doing that and in getting the help that you need, whether you know it or not, there's someone out there watching your story that you've given strength to reach out for help that they need.
So I agree with that completely. And I wanted to say something similar to that as well, and just kind of a little bit into a current event. And, your leadership through what you're doing is huge, because if you show other people within your agency that this is possible and you can move forward with it, you will probably end up seeing a ton of people following in your footsteps that will now reach out for help that may not have done so otherwise. And I'm just going to relate it to, you know, the Simone Biles story with the Olympics and her stepping out from the gymnastics thing. And I think there's a, you know, a handful of folks that are, you know, on social media with all their hashtags and whatever else, really, you know, up her ass with what her decision was and saying how she let her team down and let the country down, whatever. But she did what she had to do as a leader to step away, to figure out how she can come back to her team as a leader. And I think that's so important. And I think that you're putting yourself in that position as well, whether you choose to go back or not, you know, you'll see. But I also think you're going to lead other people to making these choices that they now see are possible. So that's awesome. And when these moments come, I think it's easiest to feel like a failure at times, but the truth is it's a position of leadership and allowing other people to see that what the possibilities are. So good for you.
Right on. Thanks, man.
Chad,
Yes.
you're
Hello.
not broken. And that's one thing that I had to find out. It was when I went through my shit. God made me sit in my shit till I got it. But we're not broken. It's a reminder that we need to change direction maybe. And we're not doing the work that we needed to be doing, but we needed to gather those tools. One of my things that I went through was a member suicide. But he gave me a gift in that, because he had talked to me 6 months before after a file he'd gone on to. And after he did commit suicide, you know, I remembered the words he said to me, which really helped me understand another suicide that had happened 3 days before my wedding. So there's different things. You may not understand everything now, but there's things that are going to show up, and you are honoring by your walk. You're not only doing this for you and awareness, but you're honoring those people in that bus crash. You're honoring that they did have lives, they did matter, and you did care.
Thank you. Thank you, Janet.
I just want to drop like what Dave said earlier around, you know, your identity and that, you know, I was on here, we were able to take leave without pay. And so I did that, didn't even go down the whole using the police to get help in that. I did my own private stuff in that. And when the day came to either strap the boots back on and zip the vest up or put my resignation in, it took me a good couple weeks of lots of tears, lots of stuff, because my identity was so tight. You know, we identify as that badge or whatever it is that we do. And, you know, like I talked about before about your why or purpose, whichever one you want to call it, is why I became quite passionate about it. Because once I figured out my why, I realized that what I do, my why is my identity. My why is who I am. The what I do to serve that why, it can be anything. It could be going back to the badge. It could be, you know, going down to the homeless shelter. It could be, you know, whatever it is that I'm doing. It doesn't matter, because it's serving that why and that purpose. So it's just something to think about, Chad, as well. You know, if you know, with figuring out what you want to do moving forward, also while you're working through all this, but you're doing amazing, man. It's just
Cool.
by you voicing out and saying what you're doing. I'll guarantee it, you won't hear it because I've been doing it socially and publicly quite a lot, is that, you know, you're helping more people than you know. You know, I have random people that sometimes will message me on Instagram and they'll be like, man, 6 months ago, you did this post, you said this, and it changed my life. And, you know, you shared your story and it changed my life. And so just remember that you don't know who's out there that is listening, because a lot of times they won't actually say anything.
I have found that same thing. There's, you know, man, from all around the world, the social media platforms I promote this walk on, you think, oh, wow, you know, somebody actually liked my post or they left a comment, and, you know, that means nothing. I get these people from amazing places just reach out and say, man, what you posted yesterday on social media, I can relate with. Thank you for posting. And my only goal was to be able to help one person. And I have no way to how to measure anything on really what I'm doing and how I'm doing it, but it's the that person. Doesn't matter what rank, what service they're with, or just a human being not involved in the military or in the first responder world. That I made a difference in their life, and that's the that tugs on the heartstrings, makes me feel really good, and keeps things moving positive.
The great part about that is that as soon as that happens, it's like a drug. You want to keep going. you don't ever want to stop. So
it's
going and going and going. It's amazing. I'm telling you, it's awesome. So
it is. It's better than lights and sirens.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I'm so late into this, and I apologize. I've read a little bit about your story. What a fantastic guy, and just a couple of things I would beg of you to think about. As a guy who has dealt with thousands of deaths in my career between military and law enforcement, whether I'm excavating mass graves in Kosovo or dealing with the death in Afghanistan or the people in my community where I'm a police officer at. One thing I've come to realize for me is that when it's somebody's time to go, it's their time to go. And if I do nothing, they're going to die. Right. And if I do something, if it's their time, brother, it's their time. And it doesn't matter what you do. It's their time.
Right.
But now I've been able to say, hey, man, I've done everything that I can to give these people the best chance for life. Right. I struggled for a long time. The first person I ever CPR to was a 12-year-old little girl, mouth to mouth CPR, all that stuff. And I felt that my soul that I tried to give this girl wasn't enough, and she still died. That bugged me for a very long time. But it's taken me decades to figure out that, man, it was just her time, right?
Yeah.
Not to be religious, but when God wants his children home, brother, he wants them home, and they're in a much better place.
Yes.
And again, go back into biblical stuff, and I'll just say, generally speaking, sometimes our lives take on new chapters, right? Not to put words in your mouth, but I'm guessing you became a police officer because you wanted to help people, right? And
Yeah.
all I want to do is to reach people. I think that what you're doing with your walk and all the awareness that you're bringing is saving people's lives. Talking to this group here, brother, saving people's lives. I promise you. Talk to these people, and Sarah, Dave, and Chris's, all 12 of us on this call, get these messages to say, man, you have no idea the power that this group has brought me and has taken me off of that ledge. It's let me decompress some of my balloon before it didn't pop. And everybody else has already said it. This uniform's not who you are, brother. You're flying to help people, and you wouldn't have this opportunity. You are now at so many macro level, right? I say that you're heroes, right? Because nobody else helping all these people that are being police officers, right? And nor do they want it from anybody else, but they will listen to you, brother, because you've walked the mile in the shoes, right?
Right.
So you're saving them. And through that, you're saving yourself too, probably, if you're anything like me. Being able to help somebody else and, give some of myself to somebody helps keep my balloon from blowing up. And let's see, last one, and I apologize. So just know, brother, that you're saving lives. And again, through your adversity, this is giving you this road. Without your hardships, without your losses, without your plate being completely emptied, your gas tank being empty where you didn't have anything to give, has allowed you now to refill, restock, give yourself energy, and be able to push that stuff out to help everybody else. And man, you're so powerful. And Dave, thanks for bringing up the Simone Biles thing, because that's become this political thing that's a bunch of freaking garbage, right? When we're not here, we got nothing left of our tank, we got nothing to give. And I don't care what realm it is, you got nothing else to give. And sometimes it's okay to pull yourself back to refill your tank, man. God bless you.
Right on.
And Chad, if you haven't read David's article, it was a really, really good article. And I watched her when she stepped down after that last exercise she did. But when she came back so strong, supporting her team and cheering her team on, what she did is she opened the door for her team to shine, and she was there watching. And so the message was great. And David, I really enjoyed your article, and thank you for sharing it.
I got one thing to add to that, Janet. There's something I stole from somebody else that I absolutely love to say is that it's okay to say you're not okay. And us first responders, that's the first thing we're like, no way, man, I can't do that. But that's bullshit, because we can and we need to, because if we can't take care of ourselves, as we all know, how can we take care of the rest of the world? You know what I mean? So
Absolutely.
You know, one thing that I keep hearing being brought up is Scott Mann. You know, he has the hero's journey. He does Rooftop. He's the Green Beret. And then also Chris Hoyer has also said this. And then David Braz writes beautifully also. It seems like the writing seems to be very therapeutic for so many people. And I was just curious, Chad, if you write.
No, my daily posts are daily posts are, I guess, the creative side of me. I have done some journaling. Eventually, I will write a book. So the thought is there. There's sticky notes all over the place. There's my journals. There's my blogging. Eventually.
And that's right.
We're here for you, Chad.
Yeah.
We're here for you. There's a few of us.
Thank you.
Make sure it goes to audiobooks.
Yeah. And Chris Gregario, you have a book in you somewhere, and I am going to, push you on that one, because every time you speak, I just get goosebumps. So, I mean, very eloquent. You always nail it. So, just had to say that.
I think you make the rest of us look bad personally, but
I was just happy he was late so I could go before him.
right? I know, right? Oh, dude.
Well, I know a good editor, so if you ever want to sit down and write one.
Cool. Someday, after my walk for sure.
No, seriously, you have a story. So
Thank you.
And I want to say, even just your little social media posts, like, that's therapeutic, because I always said I didn't want people to know the thoughts that were in my head. And I am into social media, and Chris Hoyer will tell you, he's like, girl, you got a lot to say. But I know, like, with the work that I do, and, all the stuff I've gone through as a patient and a nurse, and, all mixed together, it's helping someone. And the funny thing is that the people that I know that are following me, they won't post like a response openly, even though my account is private. They'll send me a private message telling me, hey, thank you for this, or thank you for that. So even with that, like, the law enforcement and the medical folks that I have on my page, it's still, they want to talk about it, they want to relate to it, but they don't want to do it publicly. And that's where the stigma comes in, that, we understand each other better than anyone else because we've been through it.
Right. It's we with mental health period is a very personal injury, and the stigma associated to it. People don't want it out in the open. It's frowned upon. People turn their backs on you. I've realized since going through my challenge with PTS, there's your friends, and then there's your friends. And your friends will always be there for you. Your friends tend to just vanish. So you know real quick who's in your circle, and those friends in quotation marks, they come and they go. And you know what? I stick with the people that keep me strong and keep me on the right side of the earth.
That's really true. So much in life changes when something happens. And that is another angle of it too. The people who you felt like were your good friends, when something happens, people, a lot of times people really don't know how to handle things like this. And so that's another huge shift, which is huge. I mean, that just, it's another thing that can really help people slip into isolation, which is the enemy right there, isn't it? It's, but I think, as people, unless you're familiar, it's very, people, we don't know what to do with that. Like, what do you do when somebody goes through this crazy thing and you don't know how to be there and you don't know what to say and you don't know how to talk about it? And yeah, it's a rough road in every direction, isn't it?
It is, and we know when we break an arm or a leg, people know right away. They come over with their black marker and sign your cast. Well, we've got this invisible wound, and people don't know how to approach it. I just started talking about just starting a conversation in the office, and you'll get 75% of the people that engage in that conversation revolving around mental health. The other 25% walk into the room, they turn around, walk out real quick, and they disconnect from the rest of us. It's interesting.
Well, when you leave your force, like my husband left angry, and just because something happened with management, that he was told one thing and then they told him another thing, etc. But anyways, he had 28 years in the RCMP. Nobody, not one person he worked with in 28 years reached out to him. It was total abandonment. And I was still working for the force. But our friends, they're seasons, right? They all give us a gift somewhere in the line. And if we can remember that, and some will disappear, and then they'll show up just at the right time again. So, and I'm sure we do that too. We change as people. So we're not the same person that they knew, and they can't always take it. Like for me, the majority of my friends were outside the force. We moved a lot, so I didn't always have long-term friends. I have a few, but they have no idea who I am or what I went through. I have a few support, but this group was the group that really brought me, you guys were such a blessing for me. And Chad, these guys are amazing. You can talk here, you can be who you are, and they understand you.
Let me kind of throw in one more thing to that, Janet. Also, was I know with me, I've got a select few friends that I keep around because they hold me accountable for my bullshit and they call me out. And I mean, my advice is you got to be thick-skinned about some of these things, because if you're like me and you're in denial and people call you out and you continue to deny stuff, you're just going to dig a bigger hole for yourself.
Oh, yeah.
People call me out and they're like, dude, no, you're full of shit. And I'm like, no, I'm not. And then they point out why. And I'm like, damn it. All right. Okay, fine. Whatever. And then I start realizing that, not only am I full of shit, but, I can't see the bigger picture because I'm so wrapped up in all my own tight emotions that somebody else has to come in from the outside and kind of pull me back to reality. You know what I mean? So.
And Chad's kind of goes for everybody. And just to put everything into kind of a little bit of a context here is our value. And let me ask you something, Chad. What would you go through? What would you give through your career to be able to help 500 people?
The person I am, I would do anything to help 500 people.
Exactly. Understand, brother, when you're going through the tough times that we all go through, and some of us get much deeper and darker than others, understand your value, that we talk about, I'm willing to die to save somebody's life, citizens or whatever in the line of work, right? But that doesn't always mean gun to gun or knife to gun or any of these things like that, right? Sometimes it's exactly what you're doing and what we're doing here, right? So, I'm not a college educated guy. I've never been to college. But in my opinion, our struggles is what equals our education to be able to help other people, right? Without all the trauma that all of us have gone through, and some of y'all have been through it worse than others of us, right? I think that gives you closer to your master's degree or doctorate. The harder the shit that you have fucking gone through, pardon my mouth, the more that you're able to help somebody, because for some people, brother, the deeper and darker that you've had to dig, the more relevant or that you are to them, the more they can connect to you because they feel that their stuff is so dark, right? So that's your value. And when you start to get down, and we all do, just think, there's nothing in this world that I wouldn't do if I could help 5,000 people if it cost me my life tomorrow. but
Right.
that's who you are. That's how you all are, and how important everything that you do is every single day.
Chris,
Boom.
oh, you nailed it. It's,
Love it.
these talks, like having people share their journey, and they're all different. Some people have had a ton of therapy. Some people have done, different alternative therapies, done different things. Hearing everybody's stories, there is something that is so deeply educating to the heart. Then when I was, taking my counseling classes over at UCSD, I cannot tell you the whole difference. This is like, it's totally holistic. That's how I feel. And then you learn some things that maybe more closely apply. But I think the power of our stories are so powerful. Like, we really learn from the heart to empathize, to have compassion, to connect. You just don't get that from a book. When we talk and we learn how powerful these connections are of just having a conversation and being willing to share our stories that do connect us, I'll tell you, it is so powerful. And so I really appreciate you bringing that up, Chris, because I am right now, I'm just going to be open here. One of my big peeves, and one of the things that I'm so compelled with ever since my personal experience in going to school in this one arena, I just want to get you all to share your stories in front of future social workers. I have two people that I'm really working with now. I'm having lunch with two social workers tomorrow. I'm trying to find all the willing social workers, all the people, the instructors, to say, this is the way we have got to educate our social workers, especially because this arena has gotten so political, right? We need our protectors to be sharing the stories, because that's what moves the heart. That's what tells the social workers, wait a minute, our whole goal is to protect those who are vulnerable. And when we're not doing well, our protectors, let me rephrase that, okay? So I love the way Jennifer Tracy and Doc Shauna Springer say this. Our protectors are strong. They are strong. People get wounded because you're human.
Not impenetrable.
What's that?
We're not impenetrable.
Right. Even our strong protectors like you guys, you're still human. Things happen, just like breaking the leg and all the examples that we talk about. But if that is the goal of social workers, to really be there and protect everyone that's in a vulnerable situation, then I think this is the day and age where our protectors sharing their stories to these graduate school classes is where it really elicits the empathy. It gets past the politics and the narratives and all that stuff. And okay, I'm done with my rant, but I appreciate that, Chris.
It's so true, Sarah, because I have like probably 7 years education. I have 2 degrees. But it wasn't until I got thrown down on my butt and had a really difficult time that I learned how to be vulnerable. And it was because I connected with first responders. And I always tease, because my mother was the strongest woman I knew. So she raised me to do my crying in the rain. I was like strong to a fault. And then when I got into these love notes, giving these notes to these first responders, and they taught me to be vulnerable, which was really weird, because with the note, they let down their guard. It really taught me how to be vulnerable. And out of all the education that I had, none of that could have prepared me or taught me to connect with these people. And I don't have, Chad, you mentioned that there's no way to really, there's no words to really communicate PTSD. I mean, it's, I don't know what you've been through as a law enforcement officer, but we are humans, and sharing our stories, which has been my experience, has connected me with people like all these people on this call tonight. And we're not so different, even though our experiences are quite different. But really the only thing, I have a communication degree, the only thing that I really took away from that was that listening is the greatest key to communication, and listening to each other's stories And so I think that has been the golden ticket for me, having gone through a really traumatic experience, having lost my mother, and then finding a way to connect with first responders, which I didn't anticipate. So yeah, I don't think education has a lot to do with it. It may have some to do with it, but I think it's just getting down to brass tacks and connecting on a human level.
Last thing I'm going to say that I think that we all struggle with that helps kind of build on all of this stuff. A little saying that I have: the selflessness in a selfish society, and then is it worth it? Right. And I think that's some of the stuff that we struggle with is like, am I worth it? Is the effort worth it? Is all the things that it's costing us, is it worth it? And I was talking about this in another group. And that's one of the things that we have to kind of think about, right? In our own our own plates, and how much do we actually have to give? And is it worth it? Is it worth my family? I mean, there's not much that I'd give up for Joe Blow or Jane Blow on the civilian side, but I won't give up my family, right? And it's a dichotomy, right? It's that fine balancing act. And I live this, and we can talk about it another time, but it's selflessness. And I've talked to people about what they think that means. And a lot of people have some negative connotations to it. And another day we'll talk about what I think mine is or whatever, and what that means to all of you, but it's a real deal. Selflessness. It's a fantastic, I think, idea. We'll dive into it on another day.
I got to jump in on that one, Chris. I got to piggyback you a little bit here. I think that question has already been answered, because if you weren't prepared to sacrifice, you would never put on that badge to begin with. And now, because of what you've gone through, you're taking it to the next level. You've gone out and saved the world, and now you want to go out and save yourself internally so you can redo it all over again, just on a different level. You know, if that makes any sense. I think that one of the most important things that I take away from this particular group is it's very safe, for one. And if you ever have questions, we'll collectively get with you together. And I guarantee that any one of us individually will answer any questions. And if we can't, we'll find somebody that can for you. So I'm honored for you to be here, man. I love it. It's awesome. So
Agreed.
Uh,
a lot of information there. Sorry. So.
As someone who was here from like the very beginning when the group first started, and I just kind of went along because Dave sent me an email, hey, come join this group, and I was like, okay, let's see what it's about. And I've been sick this entire time, struggling with my health issues, so to see it now where it's at and see everyone's here, that's here, and how everyone's become part of this group, like I feel like even if I haven't done anything for this group, I actually have. And that in itself, we talked about how advocate and sharing, and whether you've done something for someone or you've helped others or not. I mean, I can see it. I can see the people that are in the group. I remember the first day, the majority of the people in this group came in, and with Sarah starting the group and Dave, I know I've done my part in helping. And I think eventually you'll get to that too, where everything that you've gone through will help someone else. And I know this is personal, but I know I was crying last week, and Dave told me, God gives his battles, his battles to his strongest soldiers. And I was crying, I don't want to be a soldier anymore, and he said, no, you have to know that whatever you're going through is going to help someone else. And I mean, all I have to do is look at the group and listen to everyone talk and know how far this group has come in a year and a half, and know like I've done my share. So,
Yeah.
All about showing up.
And you're stuck with me too, Chris.
Oh, I know.
But it's all about showing up, right? We don't know what's going to come on the call or where somebody's going to be in their mind when they come on the call. But this is, I don't know, like a life jacket for me when I come in. And I think as a female and dispatcher, which is behind the scenes, for you guys to accept me here and to talk to me here and stuff, this to me is one of the greatest gifts I could ever have. So thank you.
But you're part of our group too. Like I'm the other female, and I'm not law enforcement. I'm a nurse. So yeah. I know, my job is to take care of everyone during my job. But, you know, I had to learn, okay, now I got to take care of me, but you're telling me to take care of me, but not tell anyone that I'm taking care of me, because then nobody's going to want to work with me because of the stigma. You know, and so
Yes.
that's just ridiculous. And so now again, that's why how I ended up somehow with first responders. And I'm like, you know, we're all the same, but you
Yep.
guys will talk to me because I'm the nurse, and I'm going to talk to you because you understand what I'm going through. And, you know, I have PTSD too. I struggle too. I this, I that, but I'm the nurse and I'm supposed to hold it together to take care of you. How can I hold it together to take care of you if nobody's taking care of me?
Agree.
So true. Gosh, Chad, I just want to tell you
Yes.
too, sometimes when people share their stories, it hasn't happened so much in this group, but they feel like, you know, they shared their story and then it's harder to come back and actually be like part of it. I really want to invite you to be part of it. I was so glad that when Chris came, because Chris came, I think, for the first time. Did you share your story the first time, Chandler Yates?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
And I was so happy that he came back. And I'm really bummed that this is his last time tonight for a while because he has to work. I'm really bummed, Chris, about that. It's been really so nice to have you. And I just want to invite you too, Chad, just to, you know what, just come in when you can. And it works because you're so welcome to be part of it and hear other people's stories. And, you know, just like everybody has chimed in with their own experience, you have so much to give to the next storyteller.
Right.
So-
Thank you for that. I will, absolutely, I will return. I'll pop in periodically for visits and chats. It's been amazing. Everybody here is amazing. So thank you for having me.
Oh, great. David, is there anything else?
Yeah, I just wanted to say one thing completely unrelated, and I would feel remiss not to mention it in this context. So today is the 1-year anniversary of why I'm here to begin with. So I just wanted to recognize my friend Danny, who decided to take his own life a year ago today, which is what threw me into a spiral a year ago, and how I then felt like I needed to do something to make sure that I never got that phone call again. It was I mean, we've all gotten a lot of those over the years, but I want to make sure that was the last one. So thank you guys for being a place where these things can be hashed out and talked about and learned from. And, you know, it's such an unbelievable supportive community that you've created. And so thank you for that. And, you know, cheers to my buddy, Danny, and hopefully his loss is everybody else's gain, you know?